I should have listened to the locals. I should have heeded their warnings about Blackwood Cemetery after dark. But I was young, skeptical, and desperately needed the money from my paranormal investigation blog. What happened that October night in 2019 changed everything I believed about the world beyond our own. The cemetery dated back to 1847, nestled in a forgotten corner of Salem County where the trees grew too thick and the shadows fell too deep. Blackwood had been abandoned by the city decades ago, left to decay among the gnarled oaks and creeping ivy. The perfect setting for what I thought would be another fabricated ghost story to pad my monthly content. I arrived just as the sun began its descent, casting long fingers of amber light between the weathered headstones. My equipment bag felt heavier than usual as I navigated the rusted iron gate that hung permanently ajar, its hinges screaming in protest against the October wind. The EMF detector, digital recorder, and night vision camera, tools I'd used dozens of times before in supposedly haunted locations, suddenly felt inadequate, like bringing a flashlight to explore the depths of an ocean. The first sign something was wrong came as I set up my base camp near the old mausoleum at the cemetery's heart. The structure loomed before me, its marble facade blackened by over a century of neglect. As I adjusted my equipment, the temperature dropped so suddenly that my breath misted in the air. My thermometer read 72 degrees, but goosebumps raced across my arms like ice water in my veins. Then I heard it, a sound that would haunt my dreams for months to come. A whisper, so soft it might have been the wind, but carrying words that made my blood freeze. "You shouldn't have come here." I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs. The cemetery stretched empty in all directions, just rows of tilted headstones and the skeletal remains of long-dead flowers. But the voice had been clear, unmistakably human, and close enough that I could have reached out and touched the speaker. "Hello?" I called out, my voice cracking embarrassingly. "Is someone there?" Silence. Then, from somewhere behind me, the sound of footsteps on gravel. Slow, deliberate steps that seemed to circle around me just beyond the edge of my vision. I grabbed my flashlight and swept it across the grounds, but the beam revealed nothing except dancing shadows that seemed to move independently of the wind. That's when I noticed the headstones. I'd photographed them earlier for reference, but now something was different. The names etched into the weathered marble were changing, shifting before my eyes like words written in smoke. Sarah Elizabeth Morrison became Sarah Elizabeth Murders. James Patrick Collins twisted into James Patrick Calls. And on the largest monument, the one directly in front of me, the inscription that had read "Beloved Mother" now spelled out "Beware Midnight" in letters that seemed to pulse with their own dark light. I fumbled for my camera, hands shaking so violently I nearly dropped it. Through the viewfinder, the headstones appeared normal, their original inscriptions intact. But when I lowered the camera, the changed words remained, glowing faintly in the growing darkness. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was worse than any sound could have been. It pressed against my eardrums like the weight of deep water, thick and suffocating. Even the ever-present chirping of crickets had ceased, as if every living thing in the cemetery had suddenly fled or died. I should have run then. Every instinct screamed at me to grab my equipment and sprint for the gate. But something held me there, not curiosity, but something else. Something that felt like invisible hands gripping my shoulders, rooting me to the spot with fingers made of ice and shadow. The mausoleum door was opening. I watched in paralyzed terror as the heavy stone door, which had been sealed shut for decades, slowly creaked inward. No wind could have moved that massive barrier, no earthquake could have shifted it so smoothly. The darkness beyond was absolute, a void so complete it seemed to swallow the beam of my flashlight. From within that darkness came a sound I'll never forget, the wet dragging noise of something being pulled across stone. Something heavy. Something that left a trail. "Come closer," whispered the voice again, but now it was coming from inside the mausoleum. "Come see what we've been waiting to show you." My feet moved without my permission, carrying me forward step by terrified step. The rational part of my mind screamed protests, but my body no longer belonged to me. I was a puppet on strings made of fear and supernatural compulsion. The smell hit me first as I approached the threshold, the sickly sweet stench of decay mixed with something else, something that reminded me of burnt copper and wet earth. My EMF detector began shrieking, its readings spiking far beyond anything I'd ever recorded. The digital display flickered between numbers and symbols that shouldn't have been possible. Inside the mausoleum, shapes moved in the darkness. Not shadows, shapes. Figures that seemed to be made of condensed night, reaching toward me with arms that stretched impossibly long. I tried to step back, but my feet were locked in place, held by something I couldn't see but could feel wrapped around my ankles like iron shackles. "You came looking for proof," hissed a voice that sounded like grinding stone. "You wanted to know if we were real." The figures emerged from the darkness, and I saw them clearly for the first time. They were people, had been people, but death had changed them into something else entirely. Their faces were wrong, features twisted into expressions of eternal agony. Their clothes hung in tatters, and where their eyes should have been were empty sockets that nonetheless seemed to stare directly into my soul. "We've been waiting," said another voice, this one a woman's, though her mouth never moved. "Waiting for someone to tell our story. Waiting for someone to carry our message to the world above." The figures surrounded me, and I felt their presence like ice water flooding my veins. They were showing me things, memories, perhaps, or visions of what had happened in this place. I saw the cemetery as it had been in life, but also as it was in death. I saw the reasons these souls couldn't rest, the terrible secrets buried beneath the earth along with their bodies. Murder. Betrayal. Crimes covered up by influential families who thought money could buy silence even from the grave. The ground beneath Blackwood Cemetery was soaked with more than just rainwater, it was saturated with the blood of the innocent and the tears of the forgotten. "Tell them," commanded the first voice, and now I could see its source, a man in a burial suit from the 1800s, his throat bearing the unmistakable marks of a rope. "Tell them what was done to us. Tell them why we cannot rest." The visions intensified, flooding my mind with images so vivid and terrible that I screamed. I saw children who had died not from illness but from deliberate poisoning, their small bodies dumped in unmarked graves. I saw women who had been silenced for what they knew, their deaths made to look like accidents. I saw a conspiracy of silence that had lasted for over a century, perpetuated by families whose descendants still walked among the living. "Promise us," whispered the woman, her spectral hand touching my face with fingers that burned like dry ice. "Promise us you'll tell the world what really happened here." I tried to speak, but my voice had abandoned me. The figures pressed closer, their presence overwhelming, and I felt something fundamental changing inside me. They weren't just showing me their memories, they were making them part of me, ensuring I could never forget, never dismiss what I'd seen as mere hallucination. The mausoleum began to spin around me, or perhaps I was spinning within it. The stone walls blurred into streaks of gray and black, and the voices of the dead rose to a crescendo that threatened to shatter my sanity. I felt myself falling, tumbling through layers of time and death, until I woke up on the ground outside the cemetery gate, my equipment scattered around me like the aftermath of an explosion. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that seemed obscenely cheerful after the horrors of the night. My phone showed dozens of missed calls from my roommate, worried when I hadn't returned home. But it was the photographs that convinced me I hadn't imagined any of it. My camera had been running all night, capturing images I don't remember taking. Pictures of the changing headstones. Pictures of the opening mausoleum. Pictures of the figures reaching toward me with arms that shouldn't exist. And in the final photo, taken just before I lost consciousness, I could see something that chilled me to the bone. My own face, but changed. My eyes were no longer my own, they were the empty sockets of the dead, staring back at me with an expression of infinite sorrow and terrible knowledge. The worst part came later, when I tried to research the cemetery's history. Every record I found confirmed the visions the spirits had shown me. The children's deaths that had been ruled natural but showed signs of poisoning. The women who had died under suspicious circumstances. The cover-up that had lasted generations, protected by wealth and influence. But I also found something else, records of other visitors to Blackwood Cemetery over the years. People who had gone there seeking thrills or conducting their own investigations. Most had left with nothing more than a good scare and a story to tell. But a few, like me, had seen too much. Had been chosen to carry the message. They all told the same story. They all bore the same burden. And they all shared the same terrible fate. Because the dead don't just want their story told, they want to ensure it's never forgotten. They want to make sure their chosen messengers can never escape the truth of what they've seen. I'm writing this 6 months after that night in Blackwood Cemetery, and I can feel them with me always now. The spirits of the dead, whispering their stories in my ear, showing me their faces in every mirror, reminding me of my promise with every breath I take. They follow me everywhere. In the grocery store, I see them standing among the produce, their hollow eyes tracking my movements. On the subway, they sit beside me, their cold presence making other passengers unconsciously move away. At night, they gather around my bed, patient as stones, waiting for me to join them in their eternal vigil. The doctors say I'm suffering from post-traumatic stress, that the combination of isolation and expectation created a perfect storm for hallucinations. They prescribe pills that don't help and therapy sessions that only make the voices louder. They don't understand that what I experienced wasn't a breakdown, it was a calling. Because I've learned something that the medical professionals refuse to acknowledge. I'm not the first person to be chosen by the spirits of Blackwood Cemetery, and I won't be the last. There have been others before me, people who came seeking evidence of the paranormal and found more than they bargained for. They tried to tell their stories, tried to fulfill their obligations to the dead, but the world didn't listen. The world never listens. So the dead have found a more permanent solution. They've learned to mark their chosen ones, to ensure their stories are never forgotten or dismissed. They've learned to make their messengers into something more than human, something that can't be ignored or medicated away. I can feel the change happening to me now, just as it happened to the others. My reflection grows more hollow each day, my eyes deeper and darker. My skin has taken on a grayish pallor that no amount of sunlight can warm. And sometimes, when I'm not paying attention, I catch myself walking through walls or standing in places I know I never went to. The dead are making me into one of them. Not killing me, that would be too simple. They're transforming me into something that exists between worlds, something that can carry their message to the living while remaining connected to the realm of the dead. I've found the others now, the previous messengers who were chosen before me. They gather in places where the veil between worlds is thin, sharing their stories with anyone who will listen. They've been trying to warn people about Blackwood Cemetery for decades, but their words fall on deaf ears. The living don't want to hear about the sins of the past or the price of silence. But I'm different. I'm a writer, a storyteller, someone who knows how to make people listen. I can reach more people than the others ever could. I can spread the word about what really happened in Blackwood Cemetery, about the conspiracy of silence that allowed innocent people to be murdered and forgotten. That's why I'm writing this now, while I still can. While I still have enough humanity left to form coherent sentences and logical thoughts. Soon, I'll join the others in their eternal mission, and my words will carry the weight of the grave. The dead want you to know that Blackwood Cemetery is not abandoned. It's not empty. It's full of voices that demand to be heard, stories that refuse to be buried, and spirits that will not rest until justice is done. They want you to know that the families responsible for the murders are still out there, still living comfortable lives built on blood money and covered-up crimes. They want you to know that silence is complicity, that forgetting is a form of murder all its own. And they want you to know that they're watching. Always watching. Waiting for the next person to stumble into their domain, the next messenger to carry their truth to the world. If you ever find yourself near Blackwood Cemetery, especially after dark, listen to the warnings of the locals. Don't go inside. Don't seek out the spirits that dwell there. Don't become another link in their chain of chosen messengers. Unless, of course, you're prepared to pay the price for truth. Unless you're willing to sacrifice your humanity for the sake of justice. Unless you're ready to join the ranks of the living dead who patrol the boundary between worlds. Because once you've seen what I've seen, once you've been marked by the spirits of Blackwood Cemetery, there's no going back. There's no return to the comfortable ignorance of the living. There's only the mission, the message, and the eternal vigil of the dead. I can hear them calling to me now, their voices growing stronger as the sun sets outside my window. They're telling me it's time to go back to the cemetery, time to take my place among the guardians of memory. Time to join the eternal protest against the injustices that have been buried but not forgotten. This is my last message as a living person. My last chance to warn you about the price of seeking truth in places where the dead outnumber the living. Stay away from Blackwood Cemetery. Stay away from the whispering stones. Stay away from the dead who will not rest. Unless you're ready to join them forever. The sun has set now, and I can see them gathering outside my window. My predecessors, my fellow messengers, my new family. They're gesturing for me to come, to join them in their eternal mission. Their faces are kind, understanding, welcoming. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm ready to embrace my purpose, to become something more than human in service of justice. I'm ready to join the ranks of the living dead who guard the secrets of Blackwood Cemetery. But first, I need to finish this story. I need to make sure my warning reaches as many people as possible. I need to honor my promise to the dead. They're at my door now, these spirits who have become my family. They're waiting patiently for me to complete my work, to fulfill my obligation. They understand the importance of the written word, the power of stories to change hearts and minds. I can feel the transformation accelerating, my humanity slipping away like water through my fingers. Soon, I'll be like them, neither fully alive nor completely dead, existing in the space between worlds to serve as a bridge between the living and the departed. It's not a curse, I realize now. It's a gift. A chance to ensure that the voices of the silenced are never forgotten, that the crimes of the past are never buried so deep they can't be unearthed. The door is opening now. My new family is entering, their presence filling the room with the chill of the grave and the weight of eternity. They're reaching for me with arms that span the gap between life and death, ready to welcome me into their eternal brotherhood. I go to them willingly, gladly, knowing that my story will outlive my mortality. Knowing that my words will carry on the message of Blackwood Cemetery long after my body has been transformed into something beyond human understanding. Remember my warning. Remember the truth I've shared with you. Remember that the dead do not rest when justice has been denied. And if you ever find yourself in Salem County, if you ever see the rusted gates of Blackwood Cemetery beckoning in the twilight, remember that some doors should never be opened, some stones should never be disturbed, and some truths are too dangerous for the living to bear. The dead are calling, and I must answer. But my words remain, carrying their message to you across the boundary between worlds. Listen to them. Believe them. Share them. Before it's too late. Before you, too, hear the whispers calling your name in the darkness. Before you, too, become a guardian of the truth that the living world refuses to acknowledge. The dead remember everything. And now, so will you.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like and subscribe button, and then share it with your friends. Your support helps us grow and create even more awesome content. We appreciate you being part of the journey.